Hey, everybody. Today we have Dr. Eleanor Tanno with us. She is going to be talking about advanced directives. She is also the creator, the founder of Advanced Direct MD. Dr. Tanno, thank you so much for being here today. I see you a lot on social media. I reached out because I know that not everyone has an advanced directive. I know people don't always like to talk about this. But when you find yourself in the situation of having to make a decision for somebody else, it could be quite uncomfortable for some of the family members. Um, I think sometimes the family members feel obligated to keep pushing and pushing, but that may not necessarily be what their patient wants. And so an advance directive can help lead the family members, friends, or whoever you assign to be your advance directive. So let's talk about that. Like, how did you get into this? I understand the importance of it because until you're in a hospital where decisions have to be made, most of us don't think about this. But tell me the background, how you get started with this.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's a real honor. So as far as I got into this, when I was in the hospital, rotating through the ICU, it became very, very clear very quickly that very few people had discussed any kind of advanced care planning with their family members. In fact, only 36% of people have an actual advanced directive, and that's skewed much towards older people as opposed to younger people. And what we saw was people who were really, really sick, their family members and their loved ones didn't know what to do. And when people don't know what to do, like you said, they tend to do more. They tend to do more aggressive care and unfortunately a lot of times more sort of futile care. And even if they had an advance directive, it was one they had made with an attorney and it didn't always shed a lot of light on the situation. So it said something like, if I have a terminal illness, no aggressive measures. But when somebody's already in that situation, it's not always so clear what a terminal illness is. And I thought to myself, why are we making these with attorneys? Why do we leave this very important medical document up to the attorneys? Really, these should be made with physicians. And so I go about teaching people. I have courses, I give lectures, I have an online course on how to create an advanced directive from start to finish. And I give a lot of pearls and personal stories because when people hear real life examples, it just makes more sense to them.
All right. So, with your experience, let's talk about some tips for the listeners who are out there as far
Sure.
as creating an advanced directive. What are
Yeah.
the problems that you see?
Yeah. So first of all, you do not need to make an advance directive with an attorney. You can, and most people do, but you could make one on your own. You can download your state advance directive from, if you just Google your state advance directive, you can get a copy. Um, so that's the first thing. You could make one on your own and you don't need anyone else to help you. It does help if you make it with somebody just because they can guide you through, make sure everything is up to date in your state and legal. But as far as tips, the most important thing really is that you just think about who your medical decision maker would be. If you don't name anyone, by default, in most states, it's going to be your spouse if you have one, which may or may not always be the right choice for you. And depending on their health, may not be the right choice for them either. Um, if you do not name if you don't name one, the default, like I said, is a spouse and then followed by adult children equally, which can raise a lot of issues in some families if actually you would have preferred one over the other. So, um, name somebody. It's better than just leaving it to chance. So that's tip one: is name your medical decision maker. And in some states, we call this medical powertrain. Number two is have a conversation with this person. You cannot just put their name on a form and then expect them to know what kind of medical care you would want in an urgent situation. So, what I tell my students and my clients when I teach them is teach your medical decision maker the answer to this question, not just the answer, your answer. So the question is, I would want to be kept alive as long as I am still able to play. And this is a question that you need to think about for yourself. And it's not an easy question. So, and it changes throughout your life. Like, as a young, healthy person, it might be, as long as I'm able to live independently, drive, do all the things, climb a mountain. When you're 80, that might look really different. It might be as long as I'm able to take care of my grandkids, interact with my family, something like that. So Step one or tip one would be name a medical decision maker. Step two is teach them the answer to that question. And then my final tip is that just creating an advance directive, it's really a final gift that you leave to your family members because unfortunately for you, an advance directive only comes into play if you're not able to make your own decision. And so it goes to the next person who's available, and they follow that succession order if you don't have somebody. So by you even having a brief conversation at some point in time, you leave them, basically you give them a gift where they can feel less guilty in any kind of choice that they made. So if they chose to pursue aggressive medical care because they know that's what you want and they know it in their heart because you had a conversation, then they can feel good about it. Whereas if you haven't had this conversation, they don't know what to do, they tend to do more, and then they tend to question after the fact, did they do the right thing? So this is really a gift to that person.
I could see how there would be a lot of internal struggles within the family if there's multiple children and some want this and some want that. And it's a very emotional time, right? The parent is very sick. So thank you for doing what you're doing and
Yeah.
helping us save. I'm all about the power of peacefulness on this podcast. And this certainly can bring a lot of peace into someone's life to have this set up. And also to know that it is a gift to the family, right? Or your spouse that decision is made by me, and I shouldn't have to burden you making those decisions.
Yeah, actually, so to your point, I had a patient not too long ago who she's one of three sisters, and both of her parents actually were in the ICU within 6 weeks of each other. It was a very fast turnaround, and both of them ended up passing away. And this was just it was during COVID, nobody could visit. It was a very chaotic time. And in the end, you know, there were three of them, the sisters. And so one of them, which was her, was kind of like, at the end, they were all angry at each other, and the other two sisters are no longer speaking to her. And so you see a situation where when you haven't discussed things in advance, when they're making decisions together, it can be very complicated very quickly, especially if there already was any kind of emotional, distress among the family. And then you add this layer, which is a huge layer, and it can unfortunately be catastrophic to the relationship. So it's really, really important to have discussions in advance, especially if you have, complicated family dynamics.
Tell us about some resources on your website. I was talking to you before. I know that you've created a great resource for our listeners.
Yeah. So I have a lot of articles on my website. I think the most useful one is I have a free step-by-step guide to creating your advance directive. So I have all the links in there of how to find your state advance directive, how to choose a medical power of attorney, how to think about that question of, I could be, I would want to be kept alive as long as I am still able to blank. Lots of information on that step-by-step guide. And then I have information about post forms. A lot of people ask about that. Do not resuscitate orders. So take a look. It's really, basically, I distilled it down to probably the top 10 most useful things that people ask about.
Perfect. And where could people get a hold of you?
On my website, advanceddirectivemd.com, or I'm on Instagram, advanceddirectivemd, Facebook, same thing, or on LinkedIn, they can find me by my name, Eleanor Tanno.
Dr. Tanno, thank you so much for being
Yeah.
here today and helping us create peace in our lives. I'll see you guys next week on the power of peacefulness. If you like this episode, do me a favor, give it a thumbs up, and also share it with someone who could benefit. Thanks for your expertise.
Thank you.